And welcome back to, unbelievably, the end of week 3 already. Been watching the volunteers working hard today, and it reminded me of a poem. I won't tell you the whole poem, but it's a poem by Hesiod, and it begins, "Before the gates of excellence, the high gods have placed sweat." And this project, like many of my other projects in the past, is a real testament to that. Volunteers have continued the long process of preparing our many timbers. They've been side axing with steel axes, they've been experimenting with stone axes, they've been cutting many notches, and we've been recording the process. Been trying to kind of find out the efficiencies of each person and their tool use, and actually this time we've also been taking casts of the notches that we've been making with stone tools, and those casts have been dropped into jugs of water to measure the displacement in cubic centimeters, and the process continues. But I've just got to show you some of this incredible axe work. So these are volunteers who have generally very little experience with hand tools, and in the space of 2 weeks now, I mean, look at the finish on some of these rafters. They are incredible. I'm so impressed at the speed with which these incredible people are picking this up. The stone tools, of course, are much harder, much more difficult to use, but I think part of that is simply because we just don't use them. Even in the modern world, many of us may have used axes at various times, even for splitting kindling, but actually a stone axe is something that has not really been used for many thousands of years, and it takes a certain level of adjustment to find the right angles. We've also been looking at how logs can be reduced to structural timbers, things like rafters, and rather than the sort of usual hewing notches and then side axing, we've been experimenting with wooden wedges and seeing how we can split out the timber in different ways and whether it's more efficient. This is just the start of this process, so actually it will continue for the duration of the project while we're preparing timbers. But the idea is it should start to help us to understand what a finished timber in the Neolithic looks like. So we obviously have options. We have options of adzing it with stone adzers. We have options of reducing it with a stone axe, side axing. And we also have options of splitting the timber off with wedges. And they all produce slightly different finishes. It's raised so many questions. What you can't see from these videos are the debates that go on between the hard work. And it's sort of already raising questions like, you know, what would this structure have been used for? Because if it's a barn for storing your surplus as early farmers, then perhaps you're not finishing it to the same degree as if it's something for ceremonies or for collecting large gatherings of people. And again, what we know from the limited Neolithic evidence we have is that even in unseen contexts, like those well linings that I showed you last time, Neolithic people are in fact preparing timbers to quite a high degree, a surprisingly high degree. So we're continuing the work. There's lots of it still to do. And really the volunteers are just showing this spirit. I was talking to somebody just a few minutes ago about the fact that everyone has signed up for this project, and although we all come from very different backgrounds, very different careers, there's a common thread that runs through the volunteers on this project. And at some basic level, it's about having a desire, a need to want to build something with your hands. It may be Neolithic, it may be medieval, but there's something sort of fundamental about taking trees from the woods, reducing them to timbers that you can use, and then building something from them. And that's the common theme. And regardless of backgrounds and occupations, everyone is able to sit down with each other with a cup of tea or work side by side with axes and actually have really interesting conversations and get on really well. This is the joy of the project so far. I've just got to show you another bit of side axing because it's absolutely phenomenal. Here's a timber, and again, look at the finish going on here. It's pretty astounding. Interestingly, one of the biggest sort of clues to how much work has been done on this project so far is in the pile of chippings and bark, which is actually forming a small mountain just over by the fence. And that bark and those chippings will increase in volume dramatically as this project continues. And really going back to the, before the gates of excellence, the high gods of place sweat, this project is just really reinforcing that notion. By the time this is finished, many months away, the people involved in this project will be significantly stronger. It's already happening. Significantly fitter, and their skills with traditional hand tools and their knowledge of timber will be many, many times greater. So, hoping you're enjoying these little posts, but the project is at its very early stages, but I'd like to just sort of keep you in touch with things as we go. So yeah, keep tuning in, and if you've got any sort of comments or suggestions or questions, then stick them in the comments and I'll do my best to answer them. See you soon.